Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to episode 11 of the fourth and final season of Psyched to be with you. This penultimate of ultimate episodes. I'm tremendously excited, privileged, and ultimately in awe of this episode's guest, someone who is a legend. I have the great privilege of not just calling my 2024 Limit Break mentor, but also a friend. So this is going to be an absolutely fantastic episode. I couldn't think of a better way to begin considering wrapping up this show, let alone this season. So let's just get stuck in. No more from me. One night, one more time. Let's go. My very special guest, if you could please tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm intimidated by that introduction.
Hello,
My name is
intimidated.
Jess. Hello, my name is Jess Rutland. My pronouns are they, them, and it's a delight to be invited to come onto the show with you. Not sure how I'm going to live up to that expectation and that introduction, but I'm going to do my best. Thank you kindly, Chris. I would expect nothing less of you.
I think you'd be fine. And Jess, what is it that you do?
What is it that I do? I do video games.
Nice.
The entirety of video games.
All of it.
Currently, all of it.
Did you start Get Good? Is that where that began?
I did. I knowingly, it's historically you can trace it back to the beginnings of time. Get Good started and aligns with the time that I was born exactly. If you look at the astrological charts, they can actually depict that specifically. But I digress. Outside of that, I also do business development in video games as well. Currently, I am the business development and marketing manager at the charity Safe in Our World.
Lovely. We're a big fan of Safe on the show. Had several of your friends, colleagues on the show with us before, so it's great for you to have you joined them and obviously myself. Now we're gonna get stuck into it because let's be frank, and indeed anyone else we'd like to involve. What is business development in video games for the uninitiated and presumably don't know how to use Excel very well?
Oh, what is business development in video games? So let me take you to a little mind palace here, if I will, if I could. All right, are you ready? Are you prepared to step in?
Yep.
So business development is kind of usually rooted in this idea of sales and services, going door to door. Think your nice businessman in a brown suit with a little tie, a little suitcase going around and saying, "Hi, I have a service to deliver to you. This is why you should take our services." And then also going into business meetings and doing that big old pitch, when he's got like the big flippity flip chart and he's going, right, here is your pie chart that tells you why your business is doing badly. Here is your other pie chart that can tell you why, if you give me £10,000, I can make this sad face become like a happy face. That's basically business development in a nutshell. But with video games, most of that just goes out of the window. Video games business development is constantly evolving. It's very, very rocky. It's very tumultuous. It's increasingly difficult to keep your finger on the pulse of it year on year. We both know of the tumult that is the games industry. This sadly repeating pattern as well of reaching peaks of volatility where we go on hiring sprees and then firing sprees, redundancy rounds, the economy affecting video game sales massively, all those lovely, lovely topics that we like to talk about. But when it comes to business development for games, the primary focuses really are for using data, or how I feel about it anyway, is to use data to make informed business decisions, but not to let it make decisions that lead you forward necessarily. So to making sure that, are you doing the right thing? Potentially not. Is there any data that you could be looking for to help you making the good decisions? So for example, is there like a survey or a spreadsheet or something like that. They can give you the information that you need to say how much money is your game making. What's the commercial analysis? What's the market looking like? What is the competitor kind of analysis around that? But also, how do you combat tumult? How do you, as your business grow and evolve it to become sustainable in a volatile industry? How do you continue to grow and evolve in the ways that you want to as a business, and make sales and make money? A lot of it is around making money.
So what I'm hearing is you are the video game equivalent of Mad Men.
Kind of, yeah. I think that's the kind of thing for it. I think what I do like about business development in games is actually the most powerful person in the room is probably the person who is in the filthiest, most basic generic graphic tee possible, rather than the fancy suit that's worth £3,000. That is where the power lies in any instance or situation. So that's something I do enjoy.
I mean, I don't know about you, but whenever I boot up Excel, I always make sure I'm wearing a suit. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, it's the first thing you put on in the morning. It's like a pair of pajamas. Get your slippers on.
yeah, it's like people that play Football Manager, like in a full suit. Like I do that with Data. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I do
yeah.
feel like it's worth highlighting though. Like obviously, I'd say for transparency, if you've been with us on the show before, we love data. We love surveys. It's one of the reasons the show exists. I mentioned in the intro, Jess, obviously you're my limit break mentor for 2024. Technically sunsetting in this month that is November. However, one of the reasons that we struck up mentorship was because of our mutual love of data, because of that understanding of really creating beautiful things in Excel, that business kind of thing. And it was genuinely very interesting to hear you provide that definition and explanation, especially like having worked with you over these sort of few months as well, particularly to really help center something that I think when people think of the games industry, they often focus on the creative side, right? They don't often think of like the actual the biz dev side of it, which I think is really interesting. So it's great to get your perspective and sort of insight on that.
Thank you. I think that certainly what drew us together as part of that is we both have in what I would describe as usually my USP, but it's our USP, OSP. Yeah. Is being both a data individual and a person people to be able to usually you find that for one reason or the other, you either very data orientated, you're a little bit of a recluse, you're a little bit shy. I definitely am. Don't get me wrong. I am a recluse. I am very shy, but I'm also incredibly bubbly and I like to go to conventions and talk to people and go to events and speak at conferences. And I'm quite happy to get up on a stage and have everyone look at me whilst I babble on for 20 minutes about something. And that's quite a rarity to have as a combination in individuals. And in you, I identified that you were another rarity where this was the case. Actually, you like to communicate with individuals and to listen to them and hear them and enjoy their company, as well as being able to say, and also here is some data, by the way, and let me present it to you in a way that is accessible and it is, you can actually dig down into it a little bit easier without having, exponential amounts of data sheets and jargon. And what's good showing somebody a chart if you can't explain to them what it means, what it might mean, how they can go about interpreting it or inferring it. I'm very, very passionate and willing around demystifying data and how it can be a powerful tool and a useful tool.
Well, I mean, I'm family from the Dr. Rachel Cohut School of Scientific Communication. Straight from the game studies playbook. It's all about having those beautiful slides and really really good clear communication, especially when ultimately in our field of games, people really care. Games reach and matter a lot of people to a lot of people, and I think that's why being able to communicate is so vital to the process. Now,
Yeah, it really is.
Obviously, we've sort of touched on that a little bit, but I think, if you could perhaps give us some insight into, is there a specific kind of project or thing that you can tell us about that you've been working on recently to sort of just help give an idea of these skills sort of in a tangible format?
It's a good question. I do have a couple of bits actually that I could talk about that I'd love to part ways with. A little bit of background about me, folks, for those listening, watching, whatever your medium is,
Consuming.
your consumption methodology, whatever you fancy. I am a psychologist and neuroscientist by education, I suppose. So I have a master's in cognitive neuroscience, and I always had a interest in human psyche and trying to, I guess, brains. Brains are cool. That's basically it. That's a summary of it. Brains are cool, and trying to understand why we work in the way we work, and what is the kind of physiological differences that can manifest, but also what is the underwritten, the underneath, the nitty-gritty of what makes us us. And when it came to getting into games and getting into a job straight out of university, writing a master's during a lockdown, woohoo, we loved it, every second of it. That was sarcasm. I decided that I just wanted to work somewhere that I wanted, where I was surrounded by people that I enjoyed in the company that I enjoyed it in, which is what led me to games, actually. That casual, natural neuroscience to business development in games pipeline.
Very common, very popular.
Yeah. Super popular, yeah. But I've always said that I like to have a creative approach to data interpretation. Now, that doesn't mean I will look at a data set and go, I don't like that number, I'm going to change it, put a new number in instead. Believe me, I have seen that happen in this industry far too much.
We all have.
It hurts me inside. However, it does mean that I am very happy to test multiple hypotheses, think about, is there a way that I can improve what I'm doing, etc. And this is all tangentially, for us, leading me around to what I actually wanted to speak about, which is I was recently made redundant not from Safe in Our World. I was made redundant from a previous company over the summer periods around June time. And before starting up at Safe in Our World, I did some freelance work, which was really, really fun to do, to test my knowledge and test my ability to sell myself, I guess, but not in such ways, just to sell myself as a product.
Keep it clean.
Keep it clean. To make sure that I was, what have I gained at this point? What do I know? What can I share with people? And actually, one of the things I could share was this idea of demystifying data and actually taking a creative approach to helping folks individually in what they needed. So I did a couple of data workshop boot camps for marketing teams over the summer holidays, which I really, really liked doing. It was like a really nice meeting of being a teacher and being able to share something that I liked and also helping folks, and it was great. It was really, really fun.
So it's funny you say like, oh, being a teacher, because you kind of said like workshops and like being over the summer. All I thought of was then like children in suits, like their parents had just dropped them off for like, so you go into the biz dev workshop today, okay? Have fun.
Off you go to business school. Off you go learn about selling games.
You there just in this boardroom of children in suits. So yeah.
Just like welcome in. No, it was being able to work for a couple of different publishers actually, to be able to talk to their marketing teams, because this was really interesting to me, is that marketing is so intricately linked to data and business development as well. I'm a very firm believer in biz dev and marketing need to be very chummy. You need to talk to each other. There needs to be heavy lines of communication there, as well as with your production teams. And I could go into an entire podcast episode about why you should have interdisciplinary communication between different teams in games development, but that's neither here nor there. But it was a really fun project to lead, because it was basically getting a group of what I would describe as very data anxious individuals, folks who don't use Excel. They don't like it. They don't like numbers. They don't like maths. It can be very intimidating when you come across it. You can see just a bunch of cells on a screen and you go, well, I don't know what to do with this. It looks horrible. I don't know where anything is. It's not intuitive for me for moving around. And it feels difficult. It feels hard to use. And the workshop was focused around making it feel intuitive for them in a creative approach. So it was around, okay, how do we format an Excel spreadsheet? How do we make it, how do we make the columns wider? How do we change the backgrounds and cell formatting? How do we really, really basic stuff? But to me, that makes a huge difference, because if I'm going to be in a spreadsheet for the best part of 3 hours, I want it to look nice. I don't want to be staring at something that's ugly. I think it's absolutely fine to be spending time to make the environment, the space that you are looking at, look visually slightly appealing. And then being able to dig down into, okay, so what is not intuitive to them about Excel? Is it the way that tabs are named? Is it because when data comes into a sheet, is it because it's in the wrong formatting? And rather than having an entire workshop that's like, right, this is what an if function is, and this is how you use it, or this is what sum is, and this is how you use it. It was much more like, oh no, actually what would be really helpful for you folks is to learn how to use Power Query and pivot tables, which if you were to go through this kind of Excel course of just 101 through to expert level, I would say pivot tables and Power Query would be kind of like at the heavy end of intermediate at that point. Like you'd then start be going into like macro VBM territory, and you wouldn't usually jump to that. But what I found was really, really fun to do as a project with them as a team was actually, teaching them how to do a Power Query just when they're bringing in a CSV and inputting it into a format and being able to immediately, convert all the information into actual numbers rather than text, understanding different data types and why that's important, being able to take out commas and using delimiters to be able to separate their data out and actually make it workable made a huge difference to me. I got the best feedback anyone I think could have who's a data nerd or just in general, which is just to have someone see the work that you're doing or showing them something very small and for them to just go, oh, and they just have this look of just sheer, that clicks. I understand now. I got it. All good.
It's a beautiful moment. I feel like, and I've had that through teaching, students myself, and I think it really does. There is something really powerful in seeing someone's light bulb go off. I do think you're right about like pivots and power queries though, because I think like they would be down the heavy end, but if someone's sort of giving you a data set, like if you're being given the actual data, they're fairly like not intuitive, I guess, maybe that's not the right word, but fairly straightforward actions to implement, right? Like if you have the data, like physically producing a pivot table is a relatively low number of steps, But I think
Yeah,
you're
and
right.
they're very visual.
You're kind of like spoon fed, like as you said, if queries, and it always like Excel 101 is right. Let's do some sums, right? And it's like you don't necessarily need that level of granular input.
No, and especially when you come to a workplace in, whether it's marketing, biz dev, analytics, whatever it is you're in. Like I am very much a data scientist. I proclaim myself to be a data scientist. I am a data scientist, but I'm quite happy to keep it back to basics and keep things simple, and also to be very lazy as well, quite frankly. And to me, there is a small learning curve to get there in the first place, but skipping all of those steps and then going straight to something like pivot tables and using, Power Query and things like that, that's actually much, much easier because there's so much less brain power that needs to be involved in terms of, as long as you know what the data is that you're looking for, what your end result is that you need to see, you can, extract your data, put it into a pivot table, and then figure out, okay, we're going to make a graph, right? Let's change the graph type. Let's see what happens if we put different things into different rows, different columns. It enables autonomy to get things wrong, to see why they're wrong, and then to figure out how to do something differently and to know when something is correct or not. I think that there's a lot of mystique that happens around when you've just got like a function that you're sticking in and you've got a number output that you're having out the other end, and you don't, unless you are savvy with data, you might not know if you've got it right or wrong. You might not be able to see an error that you're doing. I used to, even personally, when I was at university doing in my data science courses, was I used to be a sucker for an error carried forward. Bless my lecturer. He was very kind, because he wouldn't penalize us if he could see that there was an error carried forward from a previous entry when we were doing our Python scripting or something. He would be like, right, I see what you're doing. I'm not going to deduct all of the the rest of the points away from you for all of your extra questions that you're doing, because I've done the working out. I know that he could see that I knew what I was doing or talking about, or I understood how to visually identify what I was doing. But when you're talking and working with something that isn't visual and it's a little bit more abstract, like code, like data, like numbers, it can sometimes be difficult to see when you've made an error. And it was just a nice time to approach a bunch of folks and really genuinely help them, and help them in a way that actually helps them in their day-to-day work. I knew what the data was that they were going to be seeing. I knew that they would be downloading, ad campaign stats, or that they would be getting information down from the Steamworks backend about their games and their game sales and regional sales, etc. I knew what the data would look like. I knew the data, how it would be needed to be used. Understanding click-through rates, knowing why to use a click-through rate, and being able to really focus on piquing the curiosity and actually treating curiosity and inquisitiveness as a skill for them to increase and engage with as well.
I also really wanted to.
So that was something I've done.
I really wanted to say as well that I think like one of my favorite things about Excel is because you're in the same sandbox, if you will, that the skills are really transferable. So like once you know how to like concatenate, for example, you're like, oh yeah, this is this transferable skill now. You can, once you've got one good formula, you copy paste, you change the cells, boom, you're away. Fill down,
Beautiful.
boom, time saved.
Boom. Yeah, it becomes such a huge time saver once you understand how to use it. But of course, it just looks like this monumental manual mess to begin with. Whereas I know that for anything that I might be doing in Excel, the first thing I will do before I get started is I will Google, how do I do this but quicker? Because I know that there is probably a better, faster way to do it. Which is fine. And also I think that is in and of itself a skill, is to know what to Google. For want of a better term, to know what it is that you're searching for. So
it's like anything, isn't it? Knowing the correct question to ask will facilitate getting the information that you need.
Yeah, exactly. I also enjoy that this has become a little Excel appreciation moment. So Excel, if you're listening out there and you would like to sponsor this episode of the podcast, let us know, get in contact. That'd be great.
Just sometimes you just simply Excel. That's that easy. I said the thing. One thing I'd love to touch on before we sort of depart the kind of work and related talk is obviously with you kind of having psychology and neuroscience and biz dev. Like, what was it that allowed you to find sort of safe in our world as a kind of happy home? And again, kind of framing this for our audiences. I've been an ambassador with them for a while now, legacy as it were. We had Rosie on the show in an earlier season. What was it? Because to me, I see that as a perfect intersection of your professional experience, right?
Yeah, I was reflecting on this the other day with a colleague, and the first thing I want to make so poignantly clear is how lovely it is to work for a value and not for a product.
Ooh, say it louder for the people in the back.
There was always a small thing that hurt with games development, in that I loved the games. I loved the games that we were working on, the people I was working with, the conversations that I'd have, you know, the glitz and the glam, I'm sure was very, very lovely. Sure, all good, fine. But there was still an ick that I would carry with it, which is it was all about making as much money as I possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't, that was my objective. It wasn't about making enough money. It wasn't about just getting through, which by the by is part of the reason why the vast majority of the industry is on fire and continues to go through cycles of being on fire, because it will try and aspire for the most profit rather than just enough to continue functioning, continue making games, continue to keep everyone happy. But anyway, like it was a small ick it really felt exploitative, especially if it were, you know, it never was at its core. I was really lucky that the games that I worked on and partners that I worked with were also very, very good people. But at the end of the day, it was all about how much money can you make out of the deal? How much can you save? How much profit can you make? Coming to Safe is a beautiful breath of fresh air, because I've been able to take all of these connections and network. I think that's the biggest thing that I've gained that's helped me the most, or has been the most effective for me, is that network that I've built over 3 years in the industry, and then bringing that over to Safe, as well as being able to take a step back and look at strategy, having seen how developers and publishers work, knowing how to better reach out to them as companies, because as a charity, obviously mental health in video games and is our primary focus, and it's towards those who work in games as well as the players of the games and the communities within the games. So we are public focused as well as company focused, and having the language, the Lexis to be able to speak to developers about their work, having the Lexis to be in corporate meetings and being able to handle strong personalities. I think, if I'm going to be very diplomatic with my words, I think that there is, in the industry, that you get, there are some strong personalities. There is the old guard. The old guard is slowly making way for the new guard, which is lovely, but there is still that traditional approach to business and games, which is unsustainable. It's not good. It's not healthy. It's not good for your well-being. It's not good for your employees. You shouldn't be of the mentality that you have to work weekends and you should be working weekends, and that the only way to make a business deal is to take the other party out to dinner and wine and dine them, and then have a continuous back and forth for a month over the legal table, and keep going back and forth about what it is that you want, and being incredibly stubborn and not, you know, just not making ways, making room and making space for others and individuals. It doesn't mean that anyone who is of this old guard means that they are bad people. By no means necessary, not at all. I think I've met some really, really lovely individuals as well that I would categorize as part of that old guard, but there is a way to, I think, interact and speak and manage. And I think for me, being someone who is autistic as well, and who has ADHD, communication and nailing down how to communicate in specific situations and with specific people and kinds of people, maybe it feels a bit compartmentalizing to put folks into like categories and baskets, but it really helps me to know, here is a situation where I've worked with a person or managed a meeting with a person who is of this kind, of this type, of this mentality, of this experience. And that's how we spoke, and that's what was effective with them. That's what communicated my need, and that's what got their need communicated. And that's been a really, really effective template for me to have had multiple experiences and exposure in doing and building, to then pull me over into my charity work, which is great because I get to come along to meetings and go, rather than trying to say why they should be giving us a larger share of the revenue, I get to say, oh, you already want to give us money. That's lovely. How about you give us a little bit more? And this is why. And it's a really easy sale, I've got to say. And having had the ability to build up a rapport and a network with folks is invaluable. So I've forgotten your original question at this point,
No,
Chris,
it was
but
great.
basically,
That was great.
Safe is great. Biz dev is fantastic. And it's really interesting to have a biz dev role where profit isn't the point. We don't make profit for profit's sake. We make money to employ the folks at the charity and to put on the training that we do and create the resources that we do and sustain us. That's it. It's not some humongous golden ceiling that we're trying to achieve here. So the business development comes very thoroughly about identity and connection and networks and the people and what it is that we're doing and keeping close to the mission, which is lovely. As well as helping out on a technical side as well. Getting to build up a CRM. Love to make a CRM and a different pipeline flow. Do all my automations.
Can you, for those
Love
uninitiated, can you clarify a CRM for us?
God, now you're going to ask me what it stands for. I think it's a customer relationship manager. I think that's what it stands for.
Well, the reason I asked it because it can also be like central resource management.
Yeah, so central resource management, customer resource management, whatever you want to do. Basically, it's
curly-whirly romance manipulator,
Yeah, whatever, if you're really into curly whirlies, 100%, that's where you can catalog all your curly whirlies.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically it's the contact space of individuals and conversations and where in a specific workflow might this be as a deal or an event or a fundraiser or XYZ project. And CRMs are so helpful when you have 300 odd people that are trying to remember who they are. It's not easy.
I bet. I think I really want to just highlight, I think for listeners' benefit, just how important and just how top a tip that was around essentially learning to communicate. Learning to communicate is so vital because I think one of the pitfalls that we run into, and I'm saying this as an academic who studies games, right, is that we are talking about the same thing but we use different words, and because they're different words, everyone gets a bit bristly and they don't like that, and they're not 100% sure that they understand what you mean, so then that causes apprehension or defensiveness, and then that causes friction and distance. Whereas actually being able to equip yourself with some of that knowledge and the ability to say, here's what my needs are from you, here is what I mean, is really, really powerful and a really useful tool. So I just wanted to really hammer that home for anyone who might have not caught that quite as clearly as necessary, because it really, really is. It's a superpower. Like, it's an actual pro skill. Would recommend doing it.
100%. It was pretty revolutionary for me. I'm gonna plug Safe in Our World for a minute here and just say that there is some free training that you can do online on the website, which is called self-advocacy training, or Don't Take It Personally. I did this before I joined Safe in Our World. I think I did it like a year ago, 2 years ago. It revolutionized my approaches to communication because it was led by an absolutely brilliant individual called Liz, who basically fashioned and took the idea of non-violent communication, which is, I'm sure you know as a psychologist, Chris, the kind of structures of it, which is all about what is the feeling, what is the need, and then what is the solution here? What is the ask? What is the request? How do you then go on to feel better? And framing communication in instances where there's confrontation or conflict, using that as a schema to base your conversation around is how to help you get through that. This training takes it a little bit further. Oh,
Just to interject there, schema, for those that don't know, maybe you'll correct me, but like that is essentially sort of like a series of things that you know connect and make sense in your own brain. Often colloquially misused as like a prejudices. If you have a prejudice towards something or a biases, but a schema is like essentially a specific set of code that says X leads to Y leads to Z. Right, do please carry on.
yes. Thank you. Um, Educational. I like it.
Informative,
The
entertainment, Chris.
well, the yes, the having this training. It's then self-advocacy in the workplace, and it's about feedback. And when you get feedback, or you're maybe in a meeting that doesn't feel good, or maybe you're in a conversation with a manager that you don't know how to get through, it's about being able to really dial down on yourself and be introspective and take accountability for what you can control and what you can ask for, and at the same time being able to identify what it is that you can't
Mhm.
control and being able to feel empowered to let that go. So don't take it personally as in to mean, okay, I'm getting some feedback here. It could be constructive. Maybe, I don't know. It could be, oh, by the way, Jess, you took ages to do this piece of work. Why did you take so long? You missed the deadline. That was frustrating. For me, the initial reaction is usually feelings of upset, fear, anxiety, rejection,
Mhm.
etc., etc. Because the needs that aren't being met for me in that situation is I'm not feeling heard. I feel like I don't have an opportunity to explain myself why it was late. I didn't have an opportunity to ask for help or support. What I needed was, in that moment, was to be told, this was later than expected. Do you have an explanation for why? Like,
So
do you need any help with
I
this?
was going to jump in there and say I think the way the question was asked is wrong. We touched on this before. I would frame that
Yep,
as, Jess, I'd like to touch base. I noticed that this work was a little bit after the deadline we initially set in. Are things all right? What was the reasoning behind that? I'd love to hear your perspective, because that's
yep.
much more approachable for you to answer. But it's also, I think, like attempting to meet you with like I'd love to hear your explanation, not starting with sort of essentially being chastised and then saying defend
Yeah,
yourself.
100%. And then that's where it becomes a cycle or a cyclical thing because you learn through how you would want to receive something or hear something, or and to make sure that your needs are met is usually to give outwardly what you might need from someone else. So it is to exactly have a question phrase in that way, Chris. For me, I would need a question phrased in that way rather than to be accusatory or to be berating of me as an individual. At
Mm-hmm.
the same time, it also offers me the opportunity to take accountability for, yeah, that was later than it needed to be, and that was on me. These are the reasons why. I've been, I don't know, maybe I was ill, like maybe
Mm-hmm.
I had a migraine one day or something, and I didn't tell anyone. Again, culpability is on me for not telling anyone, but also then I have the opportunity for the manager or whoever it is to say, okay, next time, tell us, and it's
So
fine,
so I would
but
then
don't let it
say,
happen again.
why did you not feel empowered to let us know about that so we could adjust, right?
Exactly. And then it becomes an open conversation that becomes much more about the thing itself. It started off with, oh, I missed a deadline on something. Oh no. And then we've eventually gotten down to more of the core of the issue, which is I don't actually feel safe or feel like it's appropriate for me to bring up that I don't want feel like I can take some sick time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because my workload is too high? Is that because I feel like there are high expectations of me? Is it because there's rumors of redundancies or layoffs or something like that, and I'm worried and concerned for my job safety? It could be whatever it is that's your worry or concern, but it means I then have been given a reassuring and a space and a platform to advocate for my needs and myself and what I need in that moment. So all of that is to say, please do this training because it is incredibly revolutionary for you as an individual, not just at work, but also for conversations to have going forward anyway. I know, Chris, you're also massively passionate about communication
Well, I was just gonna say, look
in
at us with
any
our
kind of
S tier
relationship.
communication. Like it's so
Yeah.
important. It is, regardless of, again, to feedback on ourselves. Like, ultimately, in the majority of industries, you're interacting with people. People are the things that you're going to be spending a large amount of time doing. So knowing how to work with people is immensely valuable. And yeah, I think it's something people should put more skill points in communication. I just think it's that easy.
100%.
I would love to know if you could kind of charter for us the exact moment that you knew you were on your own meteoric rise. Like when do you think that you realized that was the case? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm gonna drop the modesty here. I'm gonna be toot my
What modesty?
trumpet moment. Um, I would give a caveat or warning here to anyone who is recently going through difficulties with employment or rejection at the moment. This might not be the best to hear. But for me personally, what I'm really proud of myself for is that over the summer, the freelance work that I was able to bring in, I was able to bring in over £10,000 worth of income for myself over the summer. This is 3 months, based on word of mouth alone. I didn't seek anybody out. I didn't make any cold calls or contacts of my services. I was approached because of the connections and networking that I'd invested in. I gave develop a good old wallop in my farewell, to say I'm available. If you've ever got anything that ever comes up, keep me in mind, keep me, and let's keep in touch. And folks did follow up on that. They did keep me in mind, and that's because I've made an impression on them for the work that I do, or how I approach work, or how I communicate, being honest, trying to be vulnerable. And then when it came to applying for jobs specifically, the Safe and Our World was the only job that I applied to. And I was successful. So I had a 100% success rate.
Dang,
in
1-to-1.
Getting employed. Yeah. But again, it's not to say that there is no hard work that went into it or around it. It was more the time spent investing and sharing myself and increasing and improving my communication skills and my energy management as well, being someone who would be utterly exhausted. I have chronic pain and migraines, as well as getting absolutely exhausted from human interaction after masking for ages and needing to decompress, and learning myself better and my rhythms and my routines and what I need, and listen to myself and put into practice those things, essentially enabled me to do this. What do you call it? Meteoric rise?
Your meteoric rise. But like what I asked was, when did you first know you'd made it? And you after it had paid off. So you were already on your meteoric rise had already happened. That's why people were thinking about you, right? That's why they held you in mind. You only realized that essentially once the check landed, you're like, oh wait, oh yeah, GG's in chat. Which is fair.
GG's in chat.
You looked around, you're like,
no, I think so.
Where's all these stars coming? Am I in space?
Why was this? Oh, but and also doesn't mean to say that that was easy sailing. Not at all. There were many, many days of crying and nihilistic despair, for sure, as is the way with existence. But
if you're a familiar listener, you'll understand why we're friends.
But at the same time, I think, the meteoric rise is a reflection moment for me, and actually trying to be proud of that and trying to really own that as well.
You absolutely
Um,
should be proud. Absolutely, 100%. 100%. I
thank you.
remember even through our, I'm going to say fledgling sort of like menteeship. Life happened. It was cool. Jess was great. But like, I remember sort of like the job appearing, and like I saw it and thought of you. I was like, have you seen this? And you're like, yes, I've seen this. And, you know, even that journey, that burgeoning, like the amount of effort that I saw you put in with like, yeah, I'm going to prepare a really solid application and doing interview prep and things, like, you know, that demonstrated that like it is the work and effort that people maybe don't see or don't notice
Mm,
that is obviously the easiest to like devalue even internally, you know. There's no like external
mm.
kind of perspective on those things. Now let's take all of that and chuck it off into space with the rest of you. um
Whee!
what do you do when you're not working? Because you've already said freelance. You know, we've already mentioned that you're involved with limit breaking things. Like, how do you unwind? You know, who is Jess at home? Jess after dark, if you will. Who are they?
That's after dark. Woo! Is this where you pull in like the little like fancy non-copyrighted Foley like music here, which is just gonna be like womp womp
Wow,
womp.
chicka, wow, wow. That's how stuff was
Yeah,
just like
exactly.
weird.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's the tone. Um, what I like to do to decompress, honestly, is depends on the decompression type. I could get right into this, Chris.
Please do. This is the show.
So, in some ways, decompression for me sometimes looks like going pretty much non-verbal, not talking to anyone for a solid couple of days, barely even talking to my partner that I live with at home. I will just give him a heads up and just be like, I'm just not. I'm just not going to be talking. I hope that's fine. And vibing in bed and doing and listening and being incredibly present and intuitive and in the moment of what I need in that precise time. So eating when I want to eat, sleeping when I want to sleep, bathing when I want to bathe, whatever it is I want to do. If I want to go outside, I'll go outside. If I want to stay in and stay in bed, that's fine. As long as I am doing what I want to do and actively pursuing what I want to do in that moment and taking times to check in with myself if I'm doom scrolling on my phone, for example, and going, do I want to be doing this? Actually, yes, I'm very comfortable right now and I'm very pleased. This is a good time. Okay, I'll continue doom scrolling. And that is a decompression for me that I need when I've been back to back, non-stop busy with primarily being very conversational. Be that through work, a work event, being that through even like going to a festival or something, like actively going to do something that's really fun and enjoyable, but it's been so physically demanding as well as cognitively demanding of me.
I've suddenly become
Um,
hyper aware of the fact that I've now got you on a podcast in the evening as we record. Uh,
that's fine. I've had a really busy week as well and a very conversational time, but it's fine because I have the weekend ahead where I'm just gonna, um, yeah, I'm excited. Um, but at the same time, decompression for me also looks like, funnily enough, actually going and having a massage. I
nice.
know that sounds really stereotypical,
Peak.
but I like to have kind of like well-being moments or afternoons, which are, for me, it's partly a chronic pain management thing as well to help with. So because I'm hypermobile, I get all sorts of stress knots and bits and bobs going wrong with my shoulders and my neck, and headaches. But also for me, it's just a very nice sensory experience to retouch base back within my own body again, because I find it quite difficult to stay connected, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
That idea of, being proprioceptive and being able to understand where you are in a space and feeling where you are, and also, I guess some would call it disassociating, but others might say it's also for me, a really, really good way to decompress is to have a massage and just be in a moment and just really enjoy it, and be hyper aware of there's not actually a lot of other stimulus going around, like really dialing back my stimuli. Um,
Recentering.
Yeah, recentering. I
Now,
know it sounds very, very corny, very go do some yoga and do some breathing and go chill out. But like, yeah, no, it's nice. I do also have it like booked in for like a solid 2 hours, and it's not until minute 90 that I actually start to unwind and turn my brain off.
mhm.
Takes a while.
I think it's an old joke that I flare with every guest on this show, and I'm going to now engage in this activity with yourself because I think one of the things that I kind of adore about you the most that I just think is so incredible is the way you manage to articulate how you feel about yourself. Like we've already talked about communication and things, but even from like when we first exchanged like messages via limit break and things, and you even sent me like a how to work with me sheet and things like this. Like you have this really brilliant way of describing how you have made internalized decisions and how you feel about things, and then really relate that to elements in this external world. Like you've just really eloquently and deftly explained your thought process on not just how you decompress, but also why and how meaningful that is to you. And I think that's such an incredible feat. You know, I think that's the thing I've seen very, very few people do. And I just think that's really, really, really impressive.
Thank you. That's very soft. And I'm also very proud because I feel like my therapist would be very proud of me as well.
We love that. We love that.
Yeah.
But it's I think one of the reasons that I think I enjoy that though is that it demonstrates that you know yourself really well and can therefore operate in a way that works for you. It's almost like you're communicating effectively with yourself, right? Having that really solid understanding of exactly what it is you need. Now, to almost double pivot, you know, have you read, played, or enjoyed anything lately that you'd like to sort of discuss?
Ooh, that's a fun one. Um, have I read, played, seen, done anything that I've enjoyed recently? I think that I've definitely got games that I've played semi recently. The last month or so, I haven't really played anything apart from The Sims occasionally. That's my like fallback comfort brain off. Go do
Mm-hmm.
some building and I'll watch like a Pokemon Nuzlocke run in the background or something, or a Hollow Knight speed run. That's how my
Nice.
brain empties. Thank you. I'm very familiar with the Hollow Knight speed running different routes at this point. Um,
Speedrun, I mean, that game was hard, man.
Beautiful. It's impressive. But a game or a couple of games that I'd like to highlight that I've really, really enjoyed in relative recent memory is one is called The Last Spell. Absolutely top notch, very, very good for anyone who is a tower defense RTS fan. Um, cannot recommend it highly enough as a game. It has a really, it essentially it takes this idea of being a tower defense where the tower is a haven. It's
Mm-hmm.
your town. Um, and your weapons are actually heroes with their own loadouts and equipment. And
Ooh,
you have to appropriately manage it so that your heroes are somewhat expendable. They don't need to survive. However, it's such a costly investment to have heroes and, grow them and level them up, etc. But you need to be protecting your haven ultimately from swarms and hordes of creatures and apocalyptic monsters, night after night after night, where the waves get stronger and heavier. And being able to strategize and prepare about different combinations. And there's such a huge depth of the mechanics in how different strategies can be used, different types of heroes and different skill trees, etc. It is delicious for anyone who wants to
delicious.
really dig deep into something that's strategic. I think I've got
What was the title again
290 hours.
for us? What was the title?
Uh, The Last Spell.
The Last Spell. Okay, excellent. Definitely not going to wish list
Sorry,
that.
yeah, The Last Spell. Apologies, I didn't. That's my southern in me. Um, Another thing that I'm actually really into at the moment is Magic the Gathering for my sins.
RIP to your wallet.
Yep, basically. Um, I think I got into Magic in August when I went to Edinburgh Fringe, stayed with some friends, and they got me into Magic because I'd always been like, oh, I can't be bothered to play it, or like, yeah, it's a cute card game, I guess. I don't really get it. And then I actually played a couple of games, and it's just been a downward spiral from there.
That's how they get you.
It is how they get you. And I thought, I'd been made redundant the month before at that point, and I was like, you know what I really need right now is a money sinking hobby. That's what I need. Um, so, but I did get a fantastic hit out of EGX the other weekend when I went for work. Obviously, I had to buy boosters for myself and my colleague's guy who collects the Pokemon card game. And the pull I got out of one collector booster, I think for the current set, which is Duskmorn, it was a foil full illustration of the most, like, the rarest card in that entire set that they just released.
So to be fair,
oh.
I'm mostly just impressed that you're like, I also actually play, because I feel like I know so many people that collect TGCs for the sake of just collecting them. I'm like, that's fine. Like, I totally appreciate that. But me being the big capital P psychology person that I am, I'm like, are you guys actually just like low key hooked on that dopamine rush of like opening a pack, which is quintessentially not too psychologically dissimilar to, I don't know, gambling? Oh, I see what they
really
were doing
gets that
to the
basal ganglia going. It really gets it.
I see what they were doing to the children all along. Oh no.
Oh yeah. No,
Where's the protect
really
the kids people now? Where's that?
Honestly, none of it at all.
I've seen they've
I like
launched
to pay for it, first and foremost.
they've launched that new like Pokemon TGC app, haven't they? I've seen that. That's meant to be fun. And like I actually like, don't know if you remember this, but the original is on like the Game Boy Color, but the Pokemon trading card game video game. Like I think you can play it on Nintendo Switch Online. I think it's on there. But like it's OG set, and like just the card battles are really good. It's just really solid, and like that scratches my like TGC itch. Like
I think that a lot of the
wild.
Yu-Gi-Oh was brilliant. Did you ever play Yu-Gi-Oh Monster Capsule Colosseum? I am a very strong advocate and very passionate about that as a game on the PlayStation 2. If anyone wants to ever, I'll
debate
stream
you on a
it.
podcast.
I'll do it.
Dungeon Dice Monsters. Yeah, fight me. Only the true remember.
No. Sorry, no. Absolutely not. However, everyone can agree that the War of the Roses version of Yu-Gi-Oh was awful, and no one wants to go back to that place.
It's awful for just so many reasons. I just think for me it peaked after like Battle City. Like we had Worldwide Edition, like on the Game Boy Advance, like just we peaked. Never went back.
Yeah, I maintain. Go play Monsters Capsule Colosseum. Go get it. Get that PlayStation 2 and boot it up and go for it.
Maybe it's just me being like, I don't know, like an angry blind guy, but like I love that like cards look really pretty, but like to me it's always just like, I can't really appreciate all the art anyway. You know what I mean?
It's just there, you know.
No, I'm joking. I'm just using that as an excuse to not also fall into addiction. Lowercase a for those listening at home. Anywho, we digress. We digress. The main thing is that you're happy, you know? The main thing is that you're happy.
Exactly.
So you're not allowed to answer buy all the magic cards, because I know that's what you'd want to answer. But if you had no limitations, you have unlimited, unrivaled, unparalleled access to expertise, resource, facility, anything that you can think of, what's one project that you would like to do? It's a tasty question.
See, you even let me prepare this in advance, Chris, and let me tell you what, I've been ruminating on this one. The one project that I would want to do, I would want it to be the perfect intersection of of games and accessibility and neuroscience in some way, shape, or form. I think that's where I would go to. I would love to be that philanthropic individual that could say, I would love to have a project where I could cure X, Y, Z, or end world hunger or something like that. Of course, I would do that. Of course, I would in a heartbeat. But I think just limitations for me as a personal individual, I think I would want to really pursue maybe avenues of headlining projects and research at the heads of charities, or being that consultant for charities to be able to put work and resources behind to then be able to implement accessibility features in video games that are groundbreaking, like that can really change how games are played. So where the work that special effect does and things like that, just being able to really elevate that.
So what I'm hearing is you want to work with me.
Yeah, basically.
That's what
I
I
think
heard.
that's why this ended up being a whole thing. I think I was just like, you reached out to me, I think it was on
I
the break.
did.
I can't even
Yep.
remember.
No, I
You
did.
did. You did.
I said the first
And I was
DM.
like, oh, cute. Oh, shucks. And you're like, that's someone that wants to, kind of like find like, the intersection with psychology and neuroscience, and just try and really make sure that we can make games a much more accessible place and empower developers to make accessible games, and to actually make sure accessibility is intersectional and not just focused on 2 or 3 different aspects of the human experience, because accessibility looks like a lot of different things.
I think it's I don't know how familiar people are. Maybe if you've listened to some previous episodes, maybe, but I think I'm really passionate about like mentorship being that parallel experience, which like it should be by design. It should be like both people on the same level of pedestal, if you will. But I'm really passionate because I remember sort of saying to you like, oh, I really like what you're able to bring, but also you have an interest in these type of things like accessibility, which I can reciprocate to you. Right. And I think I'm really passionate about that being like a bi-directional, mutually beneficial relationship. And I think that was one of the further reasons that we really hit it off.
I think so, and I think that's been endlessly appreciative of me on my side as well. I'm not gonna embarrass you in front of
Not in front of my
listeners, but I
audience.
think that no, exactly. But I think there's been a lot that you've taught me throughout our time, like working together. It's an honor to know you and to hear your experiences, and to have you reality check me as well, and to not be afraid to do so, and to always hold space and be patient for me as well. That's always very appreciated.
I cannot stress enough for listeners at home, or indeed wherever you're listening. Maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're in the park, who knows? Maybe you're on a beach somewhere on holiday, wherever you choose to enjoy the podcast. I cannot stress enough how so many of our meetings have just devolved into me chatting utter wham. But I'm here for it. I'm glad you're here for it as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And I know the best part is I've still got a lot to learn from you, and I know that we're going to be working together for as long as you can put up with me. Basically, you're going to be seeing me around,
then.
and
That's
yeah,
Saz.
yeah. Whoops, nah, sucks.
So this I'm aware this obviously now on the back of that sounds quite self-serving, but is there anyone who you'd like to give an inspirational sort of shout out to, someone who sort of inspires you, or that you want to sort of thank, but predominantly maybe who you think maybe doesn't get enough spotlight at times?
Ooh, that's a fun one. I'm going to assume that you have an honorary spotlight moment I've just given you.
Well, I mean, evidently.
Mm,
I also like, I spend a fair bit of time in the spotlight, you know what I mean? So
yeah, exactly. So move out the way.
falls off
I
stage.
There's a lot of folks in my life that I would love to take this moment to really highlight and lift up, but someone who inspires me every single day is my best friend Aleph, Aleph Trevathan. She has been what I would describe as my soulmate and my best friend for a decade. We have known each other for a very, very long time. She is where I can be the most me. She is where I can be the most. I can make mistakes. I can be fallible. I can be wrong. I can be quite shitty, actually, as an individual. And she inspires me because she has gone through such a character journey and development in her own self, and the ways that she shows up for other people, and the ways that she shows up for her family and for friendships and in her relationships. And she motivates me to reflect on myself and to have that level of introspection. I don't think I would be the compassionate person and the empathetic person I would be today without her. It's an absolute honor to know her and to love her. And she is in the games industry, or she was. She was sadly made redundant very recently, but I see the continuous work that she puts into DEI work, EDI work, whatever you want to acronize it to. She is the go-to for really thinking about the overall intersectional picture, which is advocating for those that don't get to, have the space that they deserve. So she's pretty great. She's right.
That's a beautiful answer. That's beautiful. I'm gonna tell you now. I've already recorded the next episode, the finale, and people are gonna think that guest copied your answer because it's shockingly very similar. It's not like about the same person, obviously, but like it's actually if anything, yours was slightly nicer. So they didn't copy because it happened before this conversation. Anywho, derailing my own show. If it wouldn't be my show if it went chaos.
You're breaking the meta, Chris. You can't let people know.
Oh no, production values and time and Jeremy Beremy. It's all good. All right, so as we begin to wind down the episode, let's indulge ourselves with a thought experiment. Some of the best type of experiments. You are going to a biome of your choice. You can disclose what it is if you'd like. You don't have to. And you're going to take with you one film, one game, one book, and one album. The general rules are, if it comes as a collection, you can have it. You can have a DVD like series box set instead of a film if you'd like. But what are you taking with you and why? Massive question.
Okay. So this is your equivalent of, what is it, Desert Island Discs or something?
I did not copy these questions from any other popular radio show and / or podcast. They're a desert island. I let you pick your own biome because I wouldn't go to a desert island. Yeah. They also include some other random stuff like Shakespeare and whatnot. So like it's totally different. Penultimate episode, you rumble me. You just ruin the show for everyone. Dang it, Jess.
You're welcome. My biome of choice is Green Path and Hollow Knight. So that's the biome we're in, folks. But imagine that it has electricity and all of those things that you would expect for human existence, not just bug existence. Because the two are separate, obviously. They cannot coexist.
I mean, I'm not sure about that. I've seen many a person that says they're a human that acts very insect-like.
Yeah. But okay, let's go through it in somewhat of an order. So any film
/ TV show.
I'm gonna go with a TV show here, I think. And I am gonna go with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Okay. That's gonna be my one. That's my first one. The reason being it's very rewatchable, basically. For me, it's very interesting. It makes me feel every single emotion under the sun without fail. So it gives me that real breadth of human experience.
Nice.
My temptation and my usual fallback is Lord of the Rings, but I actually think I've watched that too much now to this point where I do know it too well. So whereas Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, I'm not as
On
familiar with.
on
So
Lord of the Rings, we've had a few people mention Lord of the Rings, and this caused quite a little
yeah.
bit of debate. What are your feelings towards The Hobbit?
As in the films, the
Yep.
three films. Okay, the third film didn't need to exist. They could have done the entirety of the book in two films had they paced it better and decided to focus on the actual key story beats in the book rather than trying to fluff it up for cinematic values. However, I do appreciate that they invented um, characters for women to take place in because they realized that Peter Jackson had no women in Lord of the Rings. So they were like, we can't do that again. So let's put women in The Hobbit.
We can't do that again.
I can't do that again. I also really like Evangeline Lilly, so I was happy.
Fair.
Yeah, I'm just very gay. The
Sorry. Just out of nowhere, boom.
um, otherwise, yeah, I enjoyed them. They were all right.
Fair. We've had fiery opinions on this show.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Um,
I don't feel fiery either way, really, on the Hobbit films. They were
one
fine.
one album.
Oh,
This one really seems to make people the most queasy.
I I am going to go with The Fragile by Nine Inch Nails.
Ooh, okay, nice,
Yep.
nice. Absolutely, like tangentially related. Have you heard slash do you have an opinion on the Father John Misty cover of Closer?
I do. I really like it. I think it's great.
It's very good. I love the fact that he
The more
introduces
versions
it.
of Closer
Yeah,
that
he
I can hear,
introduces
the
it
better.
as whatchamacallit, like as his favorite love song, and I think that's hilarious for many reasons.
I mean, it's a beautiful story. It's very visceral.
Very visceral.
Yeah. Maybe pure
Don't
reasons is
Google that
just
if you've got younger listeners around. Don't
don't,
stick that on.
no, don't.
Word of warning.
NSFW, don't do it.
Yeah.
The I guess the main reason is I really like Nine Inch Nails in general. There are a lot of albums in my life that I've listened to back and forth that I could rinse and repeat, sure. But this is a specific once in a lifetime biome experience, and I want to be able to take an album with me that is very malleable to any situation, really, and that can be with me for no matter what mood I'm in. And Nine Inch Nails kind of hits that for me, especially because I really like to zone out listening to industrial metal. Trent Reznor just having a little scream. It's quite nice. So yeah, and also it's very long, so there's a lot of variation. It's pretty chunky.
That works. One book slash audio book. We're inclusive on this show. E-reader
I wish
also
that
allowed.
I wish that I read still. The classic gifted and talented child turns out to be ADHD. Just stops reading as an adult. Pipeline is very strong.
Oh well, you either
But
stop reading or only read. I
or only,
think
yeah,
I
it's one of the
think
two.
it's the academia that knocks you off reading because you have to read so much for work slash
Yep.
papers that you lose the pleasure of reading, and that's where it drops off.
Yep. Yep. I completely agree. Um,
You could have a podcast series if you're really struggling with a book.
I was gonna say, actually, could I like have Alice Isn't Dead or something like that? Could I have
That's fair, yeah. Very solid podcast.
something that's pretty yeah, I think I'd go for something like either Alice Isn't Dead or I mean if I had to go for a book, my basic bitch choice is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. That's basically one of the main books that I would ever read. Otherwise, Terry Pratchett. I'm a bit of a bitch for anything Terry Pratchett, especially witches.
Fair.
So you have several answers there. Pick one.
So we'll go Alice Isn't Dead. On that, have you listened to Within the Wires?
I haven't, no.
If you like Alice Isn't Dead, you'll like Within the Wires. Very similar, like
Okay.
vibe, podcast wise. No context, no spoilers. But I think you'll like it. I think you'll like it.
Okay.
Because I also
Within the
enjoyed
Wires.
Alice Isn't Dead, and like I listened to that because it was advertised in Within the Wires, I think. So.
Oh, so there's a cross audience thing going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
The algorithm knows. The algorithm knows. All right, excellent.
She's
Now
on to us.
this is the question I'm sure you were least looking forward to. But what video game are you taking? Now people
Final
tend
Fantasy 12.
Oh wow, didn't even wow. Boom. Straight in. Right, original or Zodiac Age?
Zodiac Age.
Okay, good. I'm glad that you are firmly rooted in this reality. Okay, that was a check.
Yep. I know where I am.
Okay, good.
I know what's up.
Good.
So many reasons for why there's so many other games that could easily come up there, but I like to be practical, and I want a game that I can sink my teeth into, will take a shit ass ton of time to do. I can play through different ways. A JRPG is going to do that for me.
You want a 200-hour essentially single player MMO? No shot.
Yeah. And out of all the Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy 12 is my favorite. Honorable mentions. I can do my honorable mentions if you'd like them, if the listeners would like.
So I mean, it's you might call it semi-controversial to in a chat with the co-editor of the Psyched Final Fantasy VII to call 12 your favorite. Some might call that spicy. I don't hold any spice towards it, but do please defend your choice of 12. So okay, was it the first one you played? Because that tends to be people's favorites.
It was.
Ah, there we go.
Fairness.
Nostalgia. How it
it's the nostalgia factor.
Yes.
It grasps me. Also, Fran and Balthea was probably a bisexual awakening. I think also mechanically, I really like it was I believe the first Final Fantasy game to do kind of like a live action real-time fighting system, but it's still the selection with the kind of like original menus, whereas previous titles, so the previous one probably would have been Final Fantasy X. We don't talk about 11, that wasn't really a thing. Whereas 10 was very traditional, still turn-based, very solidly still turn-based, but I really like with 12 that it has the gambit system is beautiful. It's nearly
baby's
flawless. Baby's first programming. It's beautiful. I remember my breath being absolutely taken away in terms of the graphic fidelity. I think the Final Fantasy games have always been up there with their releases. Less so nowadays as technology is really catching up on us, and the curve is, the gradient is smoothing out. But I just think in terms of the storyline, I mean, it's basically Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's great. Easy to follow. The worlds are interesting. The dungeons are interesting. Bosses are hard as nails. Yeah, all around.
How much do you dislike Van?
I dislike Vaughn.
Good, correct answer. Good, just
a reasonable amount.
Good enough, yeah.
I think that's also why Final Fantasy 12 is one of my favorite, because it less becomes the main character protagonist show, and it actually feels very genuinely about like it's the team and the quest and the journey that they're going on together. Like even with Ash becoming like the trying to reclaim the throne and everything like that, and to return back, like it doesn't feel like the Ash show. It doesn't feel like the Vaughn show.
So,
everyone forgets that Penelo even exists.
Yeah, naturally. Apart from Fran and Balthea, I'm assuming, who was the third member of your party?
Bosh.
Nice. I'm Captain
Von
Bosch.
Bontenberg of Dalmasca. I'm Captain Bosch.
I actually only recently this summer finally went back and beat Final Fantasy 12 on the PS2, like OG. And like
Ooh,
the game is
delicious.
basically broken once you get either access to Bubble or the Bubble Belt, and you can just win. Bubble
Yeah,
and win.
yeah, yeah. I did over, I think it was lockdown actually. I, with the Zodiac Age, did the platinum. I got the platinum trophy on Zodiac Age. Oh
GG's
yeah.
in chat. Oh,
Thank you. I have I have 5 platinum trophies under my belt on PlayStation 4. They are Bloodborne, um, Sekiro, Spyro 3,
nice,
Spyro 1,
nice.
and
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Zodiac
whoa, whoa,
Age.
whoa, whoa! Why have you not got the platinum for the best Spyro 2?
I can't remember. I think it was something to do with like a glitch or something glitched out or something. Or maybe I did get the platinum and I'm misremembering and miscounting. But I definitely have it for the first one and the third one.
Also, I love that like we
And I'd
jokingly
rather.
started with like get good, and then you're just like check out my platinum list though, fam. Like, okay, all right,
That's it. That's all I've got though. Those are my only platinums. But it was just really, really fun. The only thing I didn't like about Zodiac Age compared to the original was how they rehandled the licensing and the weapons. I didn't like that it was essentially open board for whatever you wanted to do, but it would give you a prescriptive starting point. I really enjoyed with the original game it being prescriptive, like avenues and journeys to have to craft out of the board. I'm not very explaining it very well. For anyone who doesn't know what I mean, please just go look up a comparison of the two.
yeah. So for those that
But
don't
that kind of made
know,
me a bit sad.
for those who don't know, in original Final Fantasy 12, you basically just get all your party members have one board, and you have to get licenses to use equipment, accessibilities. So everyone can kind of just be a multi-class god if you grind out enough points, basically.
Yeah.
In the Zodiac Age, you have to pick 2 license boards, and they are much more centric on classic Final Fantasy classes. So like White Mage, Time Mage, Black Mage, Paladin, Brawler, etc., Pugilist sort of thing. So they become a lot more 2-dimensional characters, but one of the reasons they made that change was to make the gameplay experience a little bit more enriching, and essentially to make you have to use more than 3 characters, because everyone gets all the party members and lets 3 of them stay level 5 and the rest of them reach level 99.
Rude.
I'm not wrong now, am I?
It's a fair. No, you're not wrong. It is fair. I found it frustrating as a change. It doesn't mean overall I hated it. It was fine. It was just if I had to pick something I didn't like as a change, it'd be that. Otherwise, being able to just Naum everywhere, mwah,
Yeah.
thank you. It's the reason why every Pokemon game that's older is way better to be able to play on an emulator, because you can just Naum through the entire map. You haven't got running shoes, no problem. 3 times speed, off you go.
Boom. All right, we've got a probe while we're here. Final Fantasy 12, your favorite, right? Have you what flex? What other ones have you played? What other ones have you beaten? Right, like
Final Fantasies specifically. Final Fantasy X.
Nice.
Have not platinumed, but I have completed through a couple of times. I just cannot be asked with getting the platinum for it because of the grind. Yeah. Also really suck at chocobo racing. So I can't do the hard chocobo race. I just can't do it. I can't do it quick enough. 10's all right. It's nice. The characters not annoy me quite a lot in terms of their writing, which is why I go with 12, because 12 is much better writing. It's more mature. Final Fantasy 13.
Nice, okay.
I have played. I controversially really liked 13. 13.2 or whatever it was weird and didn't really strike anywhere with me. And then I never played Lightning Returns because I fell off of it after that. But originally, like the first Final Fantasy 13, I really liked it, and I liked what they were trying to do with the game and the world building, and it was stunning. It was very, very cool. And then Final Fantasy 15, i.e. Road Trip Simulator.
The OG.
the OG. I liked it. I never finished it.
Fair.
I think I got maybe halfway through. But the boys didn't captivate me enough. And then
You mean the bros?
Final Fantasy, the bros. And then Final Fantasy VIII. Actually, I really, really like Final Fantasy VIII. That's actually my earliest entry. I have not played Final Fantasy VII. And I'll tell you for why. I am a wee bab. I am only 28 years of age, so
all I'm hearing is excuses. You can play this
right,
game right now.
Okay, but wouldn't it not be an interesting psychological experiment to have for someone to play only Final Fantasy VII Remake and have that as their first impression, and then go back and play the original and see what that difference is?
I went on record saying this in front of a packed hall at PAX East, and I truly think I reckon the remake trilogy will be better than the original game. But I think you will not enjoy some of the subtler nuances in the remake without having enjoyed the original, and I think the original still holds up and is worth playing today, which is why I'm co-editing a book on it. Also, you get to play as everyone's favorite eco-terrorist, and that's just a good time.
That is true. That is very true.
The big lead up I was going to on that is because as much as 7 is my favorite, my first entry to the series, like I objectively think 9 is the best one. Like
I'm really excited to play 9 one day. I'm really excited because I feel very good about it.
Apart from its steal rates, it perfectly captures, I think, a lot of what made classic Final Fantasy very, very good, while still having a really unique feeling world and brilliant characters. And if you don't love Freya, I will be sad and also slightly confused.
I probably will love Freya. I think for me, Final Fantasy IX is it's almost like a treat. Sometimes, I don't know if this is a weird thing about me. Maybe it's a delayed motivation thing, who knows? But I like to have certain games as like treats that I won't play until I'm ready to engage with it fully and really enjoy it and not be stressed. So I've done the same with Baldur's Gate 3. Final Fantasy IX falls into that bucket, and a couple of other games. Final Fantasy VII Remake falls into that bucket as well. Plus, I'm also waiting for more of it to come out, because I know I will just want to constantly play it all the time.
Oh, don't worry. You'll if like me, you'll get 200 hours into Rebirth and go, okay, I'm ready for a break now. I need to remember what life is. I got that platinum, and that was a trial.
Damn. But I think for me, I have an affinity for a lot of Final Fantasy characters because my entry to Final Fantasy was actually Kingdom Hearts.
Nice.
Because Kingdom Hearts was one of the first games that I played on the PlayStation 2. So Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 2. I have a very strong emotional connection for the local game store that I had growing up. So it was a store called Final Level Games in Aylesbury Fire Square Shopping Centre, if anyone is familiar with Aylesbury. And it was run by 2 guys called Mark and Chris. They were lovely. Wee little 9-year-old Jess waddled in, like, hi.
Waddled.
My mum bought me a PS1 a couple of years ago, and I liked Crash and Spyro, and I like video games. And my poor mother was like, I don't understand video games. Help me with this child. And they became really a formative shaping of my video games interests, and going thereafter, they really were amazing at just listening to what I enjoyed. They got me into games like Phoenix Wright and Trauma Center Under the Knife, and being able to like really get into obviously Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts, and they shaped a lot of the games that I enjoy. So
Curated
I'm very grateful
taste.
to them.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it.
Basically.
Well, that digression aside, because someone mentioned Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy in chat, we've got to probe that. Before we do properly wrap up this penultimate episode, I've just clicked expand, not minimize. Whoops a daisy. Hate it when that happens. Do you have any questions for me? Because I like to turn the tables upon myself and give the host, the guest, all the hosting powers momentarily. Don't ask about the PhD. That's just rude. I've had the desert island question, and I've had the no limitations question previously on the show. But anything else is basically fair game. Go for it.
Okay, cool. I like that. I also enjoy that you're doing the classic interview tactic, which is to ask a very powerful question to the interviewer afterwards. So I like that. It's good. It's good. It's very strong. I guess my question to you is, how do you feel about the podcast coming to a close after 4 seasons, multiple guests, and on top of that, as an addendum question, what has been your highlight?
Whoa! You can't ask 2 questions. One question.
What's been your highlight, and what have you learned on the journey of doing the podcast?
Those are excellent questions, and I think I'm gonna prance around them ever so slightly, because I think I do feel sad that the show is ending, but I think I'm mostly excited because there is a new podcast coming out of it. I think I was able to really reflect on the Psyched with You experience as a whole over these sort of years, and you really think about, like, what is it that I want to enjoy the most going forward and have fun. Podcasting is fun, and I think my golden rule for content is, I've said this before on the show, but I don't produce content that I wouldn't enjoy. But I think the caveat to that is that I enjoy a lot of stuff maybe some other people don't. So, that's make content for yourself, but also maybe make content for, like, an audience to actually enjoy it. And that's no shade on any guest that's been on the show or anything like this. It's just that's how I operate my modality with my streams or whatever. So I think, I've just enjoyed being able to do it. I think it's been great for me to hone my own skills as a host. Several people have been very kind to say, like, this is like one of my best interviews and things like this, which is incredibly lovely. But as we touched on earlier, to go full cyclical, people like talking about themselves. You just ask questions and people will chat wham and they'll go off and you go lovely. It's just that that's the actual format for the show.
Yeah. I feel incredibly rude that I haven't really asked you any other questions about yourself or how you're doing or
Well, no,
what's
that's
going
because
on.
you're the guest. You know what I mean?
It's not the point. It's not the point, exactly. What is it about that British sensibility?
I've been asked the question. I should immediately ask a question back. Because let's be fair, no one wants to be that person where it's like, oh, how was your weekend? And they're only asking because they don't actually care what you have to say. They just want you to ask them about their weekend. No one wants that.
No, that's very true. No, that's very true, actually. Well, thank you for giving an answer, Chris. I appreciate that you didn't give a fuller answer around it. But I also appreciate, in the interest of time, and also that's quite a big one to unpick, I think.
It's an interesting thing to be reflecting on it, like, at this stage, but I think that it possibly deserves more time than I have to be able to give it right now, to be quite honest.
Yeah, which is absolutely fine. Thank you for answering. Thank you for giving time and consideration to that.
Right. The very last thing is your legend is where can people find you on the interwebs for following the legend that is?
That is Jess. Right. So I don't like using social media that much, despite being a marketing manager, but my handles on the internet tend to be goth koi of some kind. So my Instagram handle is, I believe, below.
On the video. It'll be links attached wherever you find this episode.
All the links. It'll be some format of goth koi, usually with an underscore between the 2 words or without an underscore in there at all. I am also Jess Rutland 13 on LinkedIn.
Nice.
So I got curly hair. And glasses.
Was the 13 like intentional selection, or are there just 12 others?
Yes. Yeah, no, it was intentional. I used to, and still do, think that 13 is my favorite number because I used to be really edgy and cool. And now I've just done that to continue being edgy and cool. But now it's ironic. So
Jess,
I still continue to say
so
13.
hard, like, so edgy.
Yeah. Whereas now I'm like, actually, it's like a prime and a magic number, and it has all these like extra qualities as a number, so it's really cool. But actually, no, the real reason is I was just edgy when I was younger, and I picked a number.
So edgy. We love to see it.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, all that remains for me to do is to once again thank you, Jess, for joining me on the show, for sharing your time and company with me. I've thoroughly enjoyed this chat. I hope everyone listening along has as well. You offer a brilliant insight that I think more people would do well to be more like Jess. Think what would they do in any given situation? I'm sure the answer to that will most likely be chaos, followed by a well-reasoned, sensible argument for said chaos.
I'm really appreciating that that's my brand.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me very, very happy. That's all I could ever ask for. So thank you, Chris. I feel well perceived
Yeah,
in this moment.
that's what we want. Yeah, just thank you for being a great mentor. I want to say that on the record, literally. Thank you for being a great human and for being a great guest. I really appreciated all the time we spent together, all our chats, fill my cup, very much so. I'm very, very grateful for your support, and again, to agreeing on being on my silly little podcast. It doesn't go unnoticed.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your time and your energy as always, Chris. It's super appreciated. And just so everyone knows, I'm really proud of Chris. I think he's pretty neat. I'm really excited to see what he's getting up to and what he's going to do next. And it's been a delight to me that month to month is a different whirlwind every single time. I'm very, very honored to consider you a friend and to have learned from you, and to know you. So thank you very much, Chris.
There we go. You'll never see a more wholesome end to an episode except on this show.
Soft.
So with that, I will say goodbye. I'll click the magic button for those watching. But otherwise, as we always say on this show, look after your mind, body, and soul. And until next time, bye-bye, friends.